This is a conversation with Josh Hamilton. Josh is a really, really top bloke. He's a Kiwi. He does shag sheep, but we don't hold that against him. He's one of the coaches here at JCF, and he's just a really, really high-level dude. The reason why I wanted to get Josh on here, he just has a really cool perspective on something called the hero's journey. I won't go too much into it, but it's about the pathway to success that most men travel. And in this, we go through and we discuss some of the common issues that blokes face, how we can overcome them, and some of the reasons why we are the way that we are and why in society we have some of the issues that we do. I hope this helps you out. Let's buckle on in. This is going to be a really cool interview. So, mate, tell us about the hero's journey.
Hey, bro. Well, it's a bit of a long one itself. It started years ago. A guy introduced me to the whole thing. I had to educate myself on what even was the hero's journey, and then how did it apply to me, and then how did it apply to, one, the world that I live in, and then the clients that I work with.
What is the hero's journey as you define it?
For me, I define it as the ability to listen to what's going on in your own heart, and then the courage to take the steps to make those things happen.
When you say listen to what's going on in your own heart, what are you referring to specifically?
It's a good question, because it's something that is often scary. It's something we don't often hear, and it's clouded by so many things going on in the world that it's shit, what is it that is in my heart? It's what we truly want, what we want to achieve, what we truly want to become. It's all those things, but they often get clouded. You go through high school, whether it's someone tells you maybe you'll be good at being a doctor, maybe they tell you you'll never amount to anything and you're only going to be doing this, and this, and this. So it slowly gets covered by a whole lot of things, and we lose that attunement to be able to hear that little voice that says, bro, you should be a race car driver, you should be a vet, you should go mentor these guys, you should become a teacher, all those things. And then we end up not being able to listen to it, or we hear it and it's just too fucking scary to take that first step.
Why do you feel that we don't listen to it? Because there's a time when you're a kid, you're I want to be an astronaut, I want to be an engineer, all that. And there's a time where it dies. Why does that die? Why do we lose this love for doing fucking awesome stuff that we're passionate about?
So I honestly think it comes down to the simplest thing. And it's not that simple, really, fear. As we get older, life just naturally gets more serious. You look at the difference between the amount of times a kid laughs compared to the amount of time an adult laughs. It's polar opposites, and it's a crazy thing. And what happens is, so you leave, there's this recipe that we've been following for so long, and you're okay, sweet. If I'm good at school, I go to university. If I'm good at university, I try and make as much money as I possibly can. I pick that route. If I'm no good at school, I pick another route. And where I come from in New Zealand, and I have no idea why this route was taken, but it's you'll become a builder or a plumber or something. They do fantastically. I'm why would you not do something like that instead of going to university? That's my thought pattern now. But then later on, as you go on, you might have kids, you might get a mortgage. It becomes more and more scary to take what is a perceived risk to go, actually, shit, I want to be that astronaut. I want to be that race car driver. I want to be a helicopter pilot or a vet, but it's the idea, do I have to start again? How am I going to support my family? How am I going to do the things that I've said that I want to do, whether it's, traveling or finding the girlfriend or whatever it is? And it's fuck, do I want to go down that path? Do I have the courage? Can I take it?
Totally. So what was yours?
Man, mine was I was lucky in a lot of ways. When I got I had a big sister. I've got a big sister, and my mother put me into teachers college. Didn't put me in, but signed me up, and I got an interview to go. Did the interview. I probably to this day, at the age of 18, had the best interview of my life. They said, "Look, mate, we see something in you. Come and have a go." And I was like, well, if you see something, these other guys see something, I'll come give it a nudge. So I went to teaching. I wouldn't say I had a call to it. I had no idea what I wanted to do, and I had no one really in my life at that stage who was pulling things out of me. What are you passionate about? What do you think you can win at? What do you love? What are your strengths? What do you want to chase? And none of those were sort of there. It was you're just kind of floating by. I was very much just cruising, floating by. So I ended up teachers college and loved it, right? Absolutely loved teaching kids. And then I must have been about 23, 24. And I remember sitting in my classroom back at my old school where I'd literally gone through myself. And I remember sitting there, I was like, shit, I'm going to be one of these guys that has gone through education his entire life. Now he's a teacher, teaching kids about mathematics and PE and life, and never lived it. I never lived a day.
How did that feel?
Right. Like, that was crushing. And I must admit, one of the biggest things that drove me at that time, like, I wanted hot chicks, I wanted fast car, and I wanted big boats. Like, that's what I wanted. And it was
all the important things in life.
All the important things, bro. Like, all the important things. And I had a book, Winner's Bible, bro, Dr. Kerry Spackman. And I was like, he was talking about how do you visualize stuff? How do you get the reticular activation system going? How do you plan your life forward and stuff? And I remember making a clear file book. And I just went, there's no way I can afford these things on a teacher's salary of $45K a year. I was like, this just ain't going to happen.
45K?
So, yeah.
That's not an easy life.
Nah, bro.
The teacher, after you got a degree, you got into teacher's college, and then you go on that, and you got all that debt you got to pay off. Fuck.
Yeah. So you're sitting on that, you're like, there's no Lamborghini in that, bro.
No.
And I mean, I was lucky, like, still young, so it was all good. I didn't have a family to support or anything like that, but it was definitely that at the time. I was like, how can you sit here and tell kids that life's going to be awesome if they follow their dreams and their strengths and their passions, if you're the guy sitting behind the desk and you've done none of those? No, that's just completely out of alignment. I couldn't do it. So I was a big skier. Well, I still am pretty keen skier. And I'd done a couple of trips overseas while I was at uni. And then after that, I was like, I'm out. Like, I got to leave. Like, I love my job. And I went to my boss, and he heard through the grapevine, had a letter. And he goes, is that your letter of resignation? And I said, yeah, it is, mate. And he goes, I tell you what, rip that up and write a letter for request of leave for a year. And I'm like, what if I'm gone for longer than a year? He goes, I'll extend it. And I was like, it was a pretty big thing. And I went, okay, sweet. Wrote it for a year. I didn't come back for 4 years. Like, I was gone. I left for the mountains. I left to work on the super yachts. Lots of those things in my vision board of the Winner's Bible.
What was that like, working on super yachts?
That is one of the most beautiful things to happen to me in my life, because holy shit, like, I was working for some of the richest guys in Europe. It was crazy. You know, you start off working for multimillionaires, and you're like, wow, these guys have a lot of money. And then you start working with multi-billionaires, and problems are similar, but the chat's different, the worlds are different, and you're just like, holy shit. And I remember,
how was it different?
So everybody's got problems, and you know, the old saying, more money, more problems. But the guys at multi-millions, like, we're in the yacht, and they'll be like, maybe we won't go too far because we've got to still, you know, it's 180 grand to fill up for fuel or whatever. We'll just still a bit of cash. Where the billionaires are like, this guy wasn't allowed into the country. I'll just call the guy down to the government and just get him to fly back into my jet. Or I remember one stage we were racing for the Rolex Cup, and this is in like sail yachts. Hydraulics broke. We were like, captain was working like all night trying to get his hydraulics. Without him, we're not racing. It's done. You just look like a bunch of idiots. And this is the boss's holiday, and you can imagine if you're making billions, like, free time ain't a big thing. Like, it's pretty small. And so he just ordered his private jet, hired some guys. They jumped on his jet. They flew there that night into Italy, fixed it, and just flew out. And I was like, man, you just solve problems with money. But then you saw the big problem that they were always trying to solve. They never had time, bro, and they never had connection with their family. I remember, hey, Josh, you know, can you take my daughter and teach her how to water ski? I was like, yeah, of course I can. I had this, like, they called it the Ferrari of the Med. I got to drive this brand new boat around, which was awesome. Made me look like I had a big dick. It was great. So you're cruising around. You do
have a big dick, guys. You got a big dick.
Yeah. And makes you feel good, bro. And I just remember I took this young girl, bro, skiing behind the boat, took him past his big boat, and he was on the phone. Like, he just completely missed the moment. And I was like,
what effect did that have on you, the fact that you were spending that time with her instead of him?
Oh, it was probably one of the biggest blessings I've had. I was like, this is the world you thought you wanted. This is what your goals were. This is what you strive so hard for. Like, when you were a young guy and you thought, like, boats and money were the dream. And I was like, shit, this is just not it. And it's golden handcuffs, bro. Like, golden handcuffs.
do you mean by
paid
that?
good money. You paid good money. You live on a boat. Everybody sees you living this dream of cocktails and sunny beaches and all this stuff. But we had a saying, it was like, hurry up and wait. So I remember did a 22-hour shift once, and I was driving my boat to the other side of Greece, so going through the canal. Fell asleep at the wheel. Like at night, I'd already dropped the boss off the big boat and woke up, just about hit what's called like a West Cardinal. It's this big concrete structure in the water. And I was just like, fuck, like, what the hell are you doing? Because you're just there until something happens. Like, you're waiting all the time, but you're always just slightly on, never quite resting. But hurry up, because something might happen. But wait. So you're attached to this multi-million-dollar boat with these golden handcuffs. Like, you ain't going anywhere. But luxury life, right? Living the dream.
So then what did you do after that? Like, what was the last straw? What was it for you that said, no, fuck this, I'm not going to live this life anymore?
We had a couple of we had some awesome guys. We had a racing team from a country. We had a couple of like gold medalists on board. They were such lovely guys. And then there was these other guys, and we grinded, like we worked so hard. And these other guys would turn up and just treat us like we were just Muppets there.
Who were these other guys? Like crew or
like crew to race? Like when we go racing, they're like the crew to race. And this is remember, this is like a home that we're living on. We look after it. We have it in luxury nick for the boss to go sailing with his family and his friends and do whatever. And these guys would turn up and they just treat us like rubbish. And we're just like, what's going on? And then one day, the captain got the call up and he got fired, because you can just get fired in like an instance. And
why did he get fired?
Yacht life, bro. Like it just gets happen if you don't. If the management team decide, they're actually going to go with this guy, or we're going to try something new, or whatever it is, like you don't need any reason. Just, hey mate, yeah, no, it's not working out. Sweet, go find another job. You're like, oh, cool. And so he was a good mate of ours, and we took the job. Fleur, my partner, and I took the job because it was him, and we knew we could run a really tight ship, get things done. And he left, and then we just said, okay, now we're out. So we were in France at the time, went for a bike trip, met my folks, had a great time, and then decided we'd come back to New Zealand.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. And so what did you do when you came back to New Zealand?
I went back to teaching.
Why?
Because I missed connection. Like I miss being part of something much greater than me. Like when you're a teacher or, like mentoring space, when you're helping people, you're much greater than just the one. You're part of a whole. And I was like, man, I really want that back. And it was a really interesting time. Like I got into become a boarding hostel master because I really, really wanted to impact young men. It was like my ultimate dream. And I was like, and then I noticed something far greater than I didn't realize before. And I was like trapped inside another system to try and get people to follow that heart that I was talking about, to hop in the hero's journey. And I'm like, this system doesn't allow us the hero's journey.
School totally does not encourage that at all. School makes you a doctor, an accountant, a lawyer. I had a great time at school. I had a lot of fun at school and uni. That was fucking wonderful. Went to an awesome school, awesome uni, all that. But it was actually, for me, the thing that got me out of that. Like I was studying to be a doctor. I still remember it. I was studying to be a doctor, and I was coaching this bloke who was obese. His mum was anorexic when he was in the womb, and that fucks kids up, right? That gives them all these issues. I remember the only thing that got me out of following the traditional school, uni, doctor type path which was totally not for me. Fuck, like I'm not good with authority. But the only thing that stopped me was this horrible woman trying to diagnose this kid. And because I was there, she felt very threatened for whatever reason, even though I took him to go fucking see this endocrinologist. And I still remember her with no testing at all telling this obese, low self-esteem, super anxious kid who doesn't have any friends, like having a tough go in life. Oh yeah, by the way, you've probably got I think it was an adrenal tumor, she said he had, or something like that off the bat. And I was like, fuck this, I'm going to drop out. There's no fucking way. And that's when I stopped pursuing med. Yeah, it's crazy, huh?
Right, so thank God you did, bro. Like, it's just it's a different world. It makes great accountants and things like that. Like I guess
which we need.
They make the world go round, right? That's what they say. And I'm like, that's cool, because I'm off trying to pursue my heart in other ways.
How many kids do you feel actually are well served by this current system that you saw?
That's interesting, because I don't dislike education. I dislike some of it. But like I said, what about all the social times? What about all that connecting? What about all those challenges? What about getting bullied in the park, and then later on that changes you to be an empathetic dude, or helps you help it? Like, there's so many things that you could never quantify or measure from an education system. But I'd have to say, count how many accountants. Like, maybe that's how many kids get served. It's just we missed the boat hugely. And the crazy thing is the majority, like 95% of the teachers I work with, massive hearts, bro. Massive hearts, pour the hours in, coaching on the after school, coaching in the weekends, trying to get these kids through school who are so against authority and the formula that they're in that it makes it near impossible for them to enjoy a class or let alone get to school. And it's like, dude, like, how long until your head cracks from hitting your head against that brick wall?
Totally.
There's a lot of pessimism there in the end that just the head cracks.
Yeah, loads of teachers become super, super over it, and I don't fucking blame them at all. I was a nightmare when I was at school. Jesus, I apologize to every single teacher that had to put up with my shit because I was a turd, not just school, but uni as well. Then why do you feel that we have a system which is set up? The system clearly works for some people, and it's clearly fucking awesome for a lot of them. But when you look back on school, you look back on the time with your friends and the relationships you formed, not on what you learned. Like, out of school, like, I did pretty well at school. I did English and essays and all that sort of shit, and maths and physics and whatnot. And like, I learned all that sort of stuff. Same thing for uni. But the big lessons that I learned, the things that still serve me to the highest level today, are social interactions and people stuff, because in the end of the day, people are really the only thing that matters. Why do you feel that we're still stuck teaching kids to not follow the hero's journey, to not follow their passions, and not follow things that they're... I'm not talking about this in a Gary Vee way, where you should be like 60 years old selling fucking Pokemon cards in your mother's basement because that's what you're super passionate about, but like doing like genuine service to humanity. Like, why do you feel that we're not geared towards that? Why do you feel that in school we learn long division, but we don't learn to figure out what are our most important values? What do we actually want to achieve, and what do we want to do with ourselves, and create a summit?
Yeah, mate, the summit is king. Like, I think it comes down to like a couple of things. You've got this kind of world that wants something still, like it still craves like the doctors, this way of thinking, all this. And then there's elements of the world that are changing now. Like, I mean, how many times you hear as a young guy, like, you, James, are our future. And I'm like, well, fucking give me the reins then. Give me the skills, give me the reins, and let me take it somewhere. Not quite ready, bro. You need to pass these tests first. And it's like, what? These tests serve no purpose for what you're saying we need in the future. Yeah, but first I've got to mold you for the future. I'm like, well, that's pointless. You're never going to see a change in the future of the world if you don't change what the mold that you're putting people into here. So it's still, I believe we've got this demand of the world that we're slowly losing through, I would say, scarcity, like massive amounts of fear around scarcity. Like, you mentioned,
where does that come from?
I honestly think it's that same thing. If you have a fear and scarcity mindset, how the hell do you ever think you're going to have the abundance and support to follow what's in your heart? You're never going to do that, bro. Like, you need to keep that scarcity mindset. So when you go into life, you stay and you continue doing those things. Like, shit, if you think you've got everything and you've got all the support in the world, you'll go hunting. Well,
that's really the evolution from being a kid into a man, is when you lose that fear and you actually develop that. But I remember... funny story, I should tell this for everyone so they know how we met. So we were in Bali when Josh and I met. And I was in there having a conversation at my favorite cafe, Banana Flower Bakery. Remember that place?
So good, bro. So good.
The best. Like, if you ever go to Bali, you got to go there. We fucking kept that place afloat. It's like, we would have... I reckon like thousands at that joint, because they have like gluten-free, dairy-free croissants. Like, so how good was the Banana Flower Bakery? Oh my God, that place is amazing. But where I met you is when I was bribing that former police officer to get me a Balinese driver's license. I don't know if I should really say that. the internet that I was bribing guys, but it's Bali. Fuck it, that's what you do there, right?
Yeah.
I don't think they call it a bribe though. I think they more call it like a payment for services, just with that government official, right? I met you there, dude, and which was quite funny. But yeah, but then we obviously started chatting, and the one thing that I really liked about you is just that you were like super, super free, and you were doing your own thing. But the difference between like where you're at and a lot of the other people who I met with in Bali was that, and actually we talked about this too, is we're discussing that a lot of adults these days are kids in, a lot of us are kids in adult bodies. That's what we are. Why do you feel that we're unable, and I fucking live my life, I mean, you could probably argue I'm still a child, right? But a lot of us can't make this transition from being fearful and from having this scarcity mindset and from having a lack of abundance to a stage where we become this adult who is totally not fearless, but has an abundance mindset. Why do you feel that we can't make that shift into becoming a true adult?
I look around the world and people might crack up at that, but think how attached you are to like a belief. Like people will kill people and start wars over somebody having a different interpretation of their belief. And you like take Maslow's law, like his hierarchy of needs, and you look at that safety and security part. Your beliefs
Can you
are
explain
those.
Maslow's, by the way? Everyone
Like,
should know this shit.
Yeah. So it's like you can look at it a couple of ways. It's like a level of ascension. So you have at the bottom, you have all your basic needs, psychological needs, emotional needs, and they've got to be met in order for you to go up. But it doesn't happen just like, oh, I've completed level 1 like a computer game, I go into level 2. Like even as an adult, you're going to have scars and wounds from a childhood. And people look at parents and they say, you scarred that kid. I'm like, parents do the best that they can do. Kid's going to be scarred anyway. If a kid falls off his bike while you weren't looking because you're busy probably doing life, he might say, oh, fucking dad doesn't love me because he didn't pick me off the ground when I fell off my bike. That goes into his subconscious. He deals with that shit for the rest of his life, or he does the real work and gets it out and starts to develop. So at the top of the pyramid, there's like transcendence. Just below that, there's self-actualization. But all through this, there are the beliefs that hold us back from getting to the next level. So if you think like, I mean, you have the whole adult thing is like, I see it as if you're an adult, you can have a conversation with someone who has a different belief than you and not want to put your fist down his throat. That's the difference between an adult and a child. That's literally like a clear-cut line of like, that kid, as soon as something goes against what he believes or he doesn't get what he wants, will throw his toys. And then the adult goes, oh yeah, shit, no, that's a completely different way of looking at it. Like you're one of the greatest guys at this, and you teach me this all the time. Josh, be curious. Look at the wonder. Like, what's going on there? Like, why is that? And I still remember it to this day when you said to me, like, somebody calls you a cunt. Oh yeah, bro, that's really interesting. Like, why do you feel like that? And suddenly we're trying to put ourselves in another person's perspective and fully understand, like we are trying to convert ourselves to their beliefs, because then you're properly actually listening. And then that's what I would call an adult. But we can't do that, bro. Hey, I put my hand up, man. I'm like, should I get angry sometimes? I'm like, you're a dick. Like, why do you even think that is a possibility? And then I go, okay, that's interesting, bro. Like, why do you think that? Why is that a possibility to you? And to me, that is kid versus an adult. And shit, mate, if you find adults around the place, tell me. Because holy moly, it's hard to find, man. It's hard.
Oh. So how do you recommend we start instead of, because that's really responding versus reacting to a situation. Spend 2 minutes on social media and it's hilarious, like absolutely hilarious. One little life hack I've got for everyone. So I obviously cop a heap of shit on social media all the time. And it's pretty funny. Like, it's quite amusing because I think if someone has enough time to click on my shit, then leave a comment and then expect me to write back to it, like, bro, what do you got on your life? Like, I genuinely want to know what you're doing because I can't relate to that at all. I'm way too busy. I'm doing too much cool shit to be bothered about what some numpty that I don't give a shit about and I disagree with on social media says. Yeah. One thing, the coolest life hack I've ever had is whenever somebody says you're a cunt, you're a dick, you're this, you're that, you're there, nice this, and puts a negative put down on, the best reply is, that's a really interesting thing to say. Can you tell me more about that? And you watch these people expecting this like really negative, gross like response back. And you give them that like curiosity and asking them a question, and you see it like flip their brain, and it like totally confuses them. And it's like my favorite one is where someone will be like ragging on me like a whole heap, and I'll just ask them that question, and it'll be like radio silence. It's like nothing. As like this person has just gone back into pondering. I'm like, I've got you twice. Number one, eat shit for looking like a dickhead because I've just owned you by being totally nice. And number two, your brain is now frazzled because you've had to think, why am I such a fuckwit? It's the most hilarious thing. So for you, like obviously you've coached like a heap of dudes through this, and like you've had to work through it on your fuck. We all have to work through it. But like, what's the easiest way, or what's the best place to start for us to become more curious and become more adult-like, and to be more open to criticism and to not be so defensive when somebody does talk shit on us?
The quickest way is the hardest way. If you're a man and you were lucky enough to have a woman in your life, like Jordan Peterson actually explains this the best. And when he talks about Adam and Eve, he's like, women bring self-consciousness to men. Like that was Eve taking the apple and going, hey, Adam, bro, bite this. Adam goes, oh yeah. And then suddenly he goes, holy shit, I'm naked. Man, my penis isn't as big as I was hoping. You're there. I'm really embarrassed. Instantly, woman brings him self-consciousness. But if you watch in a relationship as well, when you get angry at your missus, that is the trigger. That is the time to be like, holy shit, I'm angry. That is the best piece you'll be given to say something in your beliefs is fucking with you right now, because it's not her. It's not her, bro. Like, it's you. And it goes both ways. Don't get me wrong. No female's perfect. No male's perfect. The girl gets the same. She's angry at him. It isn't his shit that she's dealing with. Yeah, he might have been a cop, but it's the same sort of belief that you're running in your system. So how I do any work with anybody, it's like, if you've ever, you guys, man's weekend, pottery. Like, pottery is such an awesome thing because you have clay and you get to create something and mold something. And beliefs and things are the same, because what people do, and mate, I put my hand up about this, like, we run away from tension. So let's say you owe someone money, and you fucking, so instead of like calling them up and going, bro, I don't have the money right now, or you see them in the street, you're like, fuck, I'll just cross the road and take another turn. You run away from this tension after tension after tension. You run away from it all the time. And you can never create something unless you have tension. You can't make a pot without clay. So tension is your clay. So when I'm coaching someone, I'm always looking for like, okay, bro, I'll just ask them straight up, where did you run away from tension this week? Where'd you go? And then be like, oh, I was angry with the missus, and I just let the tension out with a whole bunch of anger. That's you technically running away from tension. You didn't sit in it. And like, we see it a massive amount with responsibility. People who have unfortunately developed or been gifted a bad money mindset, and they just blow cash left, right, and center. Because what they do is they go, you know what, fuck, there's too much tension in here for me to hold on to this money or deal with these bills. It's too much responsibility to be this adult that I need to be. Fuck it. I'll just get rid of it. I'll spend it. I'll get rid of this money. Being broke is so much easier. Like, there's just no tension here. Like, I don't have to deal with it.
A super interesting point. So why is it that being broke is more comfortable? Because we fucking see this all the time. I can't tell you how many business, like guys I know who are super, super successful in business and do really well. And they do this thing where they'll go and they'll make a fucking shitload of money, and then they'll buy a lot of cocaine. They buy a lot of cocaine, and they'll do shitloads of it. And they'll bender, and they'll drink, and they'll cheat on their wife, and they'll go through, and these dudes, and they have this, and it's like this repeating cycle. And then they'll go broke, straighten everything out, get successful again. And it's just like, it's this like looping cycle, like over and over and over. Like, super talented, really brilliant, extremely smart guys who have a lot to give. We go through this same thing over and over and over again. So what is the, like, where does this relationship with money come from? Why is that subconsciously, and actually, even if you could explain that too, what do we mean when we're subconsciously more comfortable being broke than having money?
We get given things all our lives. Like, we're programmed with the most amazing computers ever, because we can get programmed and like, boom, you're done. As a kid, it happens all through. You the old saying, like, give me a boy from the ages to 0 to 7, I'll show you the math. Like it happens with money. So you might have grown up and it's like, look, buddy, can't have that. Money just doesn't grow on trees. Like, oh, look at that dickhead in his Lamborghini. Like, what a rich prick. Boom, boom, boom. Money's hard to get. Dickheads only have money. Like it goes. You know, it happens with men who treat women poorly. Like they're like, oh, women are always shit to men and rah, rah, rah. So they go around, they might become a womanizer or whatever it is, vice versa. So we just have this unconscious belief that sets us up on that path.
So we're continually creating these micro beliefs around all these things.
Always, yeah. And then like for the guys who make a whole bunch of money, you have this nice set point in your life where you feel most comfortable. Like you're just cruising. It's like, you know, that calorie surplus where, you know, if you eat something all of a sudden, you feel cruisy. Like, why would I need to go hunting if I've got all these extra calories? I don't need to hunt anything. I'm looking sweet, man. Like I'm chill here. There's no need to change. When you get a whole bunch of money and say you're used to having $5K in your account, that's your set point. Like that's your set point's there. Some people used to having $100, $5, whatever it is. They're like, there's me. I'm comfy. They get $100,000. And the first things they'll do, they'll be like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll invest it. I'll do this. I'll do that. I'll be like, you're just finding your fastest way back down to your set point. That's all you're doing. It's the fastest possible way where you subconsciously feel most at ease, most comfortable. Like if I have money, I got responsibility. Maybe I'll be seen as a prick driving that Lamborghini. I don't want that. I don't want to piss people off. My family might like reject me. My mum, shit. What if my mum rejects me because she was the one that told me that, you know, rich guys are the dickheads? Man, can't do that as a boy. Like, that would be the worst thing ever. So that leads us down the path of continuing to be broke and giving it to the guys at the top who have a different mindset. You can't, if you got a broke friend or a broke person, the worst thing you can do is give them a whole bunch of money. Teach a man to fish, right? Eats for a day. Give a man a fish, eats for a day. Teach a man to fish. Rest of his life.
I say that over and over. Like when somebody wins the lotto, like don't they normally go broke again, like within a year or something like that? Some crazy stat.
It's mental. It's just mental. Sad.
Really so how do we change those beliefs?
It's like I said, you've got to use those moments in your life where your feelings show up for you. Your feelings are so awesome. They're not you, for one, but they are such an awesome
What do you mean
sign.
by that? Your feelings aren't you?
I got a great example. Like, okay, say two kids are having a fight, right? Little Timmy and little Scott. And Scott smacks Timmy over the head or calls him a name or something. And parent or somebody sits him down and goes, Scott, what you did to Timmy wasn't very nice. You hurt him. And how are you feeling, Timmy? Oh, I'm feeling really upset and feeling sad. See, Scott, look how you made Timmy feel. And it's like, hang on, mate. Fuck, don't get me wrong. These are kids. So it's a little different. But I'm like, Scott didn't make him feel that way. Tim chose to feel that way. That's his responsibility of his feelings. But we disempower them straight away. We say other people are in control of your feelings and your feelings are you. It's like, hang on. Like, fuck, I can choose how to feel. I can do that in any moment of any day, and I can use whatever skills I have or movement or whatever. But then your feelings, people say, I am angry. Like, fuck, last time I checked, I'm Josh. Like, oh, if you go further back, like people go into the real spiritual world and they go, well, maybe I am all. Shit. To really trigger people, you go, shit, maybe I'm God. And they go down, you can go down that rabbit hole. But you're certainly not angry. Like you're certainly not anger. You're certainly not happy. You're certainly like, you are not those things. But you can use them as signs to be like, stop, something's going on here. How is this attached to the beliefs that I have? And it works both sides. We forget to do it when we're exuberant and happy. I fell in that trap. I used to be, and I still am, a pretty positive dude, but I was attached to my positivity. I thought if I wasn't positive, what value do I have to add to the world? That crushed me.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember when I was like super depressed. I was like, no, I have to smile all the time because I'm the smiley guy. I'm always really happy. Like I can't be pissed off. I can't be angry. Like I'm not allowed to do this because this is who I am. I am happy all the time. Therefore, even when I'm sad, I must be happy.
Yeah. So it goes back to that. Like if you were lucky enough to have a partner in your world, like they'll reflect to you all the time shit that's going on for you. And whether you choose to do the work or not, you either choose to do the work or you'll choose to get divorced. Those are your options. Like that's what happens.
And 2/3 of people choose to get divorced, right? Why is the work so tough? Why is it easy to go through a divorce and go through a work? Is it that we don't know how to do it? We're not shown how to do it. There's no system for it. Is we don't want to do it? In your opinion, from what you've seen?
bro, it sucks to put up your hand and go, my bad. Like, that was my fault. I am wrong. I was wrong. Like, nobody wants to do that. 2/3 of the population don't, because then we have to deal with our ego. And we're perfect. If we're just coming from our ego place, we can't do no wrong. So you shatter that, and we walk around as that. Like, we walk around as our ego. We walk around with that mask on. Like, suddenly you put a crack in that, it's not going to look so good.
I was reading The Power of One by Eckhart Tolle, like a really, really cool book, like just recently. And it's one of those books that I continually read. I read that, I read the Tao Te Ching, I read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, like pretty much just nonstop, like over and over again on repeat. One of the coolest things that I heard out of that is that with the ego and with the way that we think ourselves and we believe in ourselves, for the ego to admit fault means total destruction of that ego. So therefore, the ego will never actually want to admit that it's wrong, because the moment we do that, the ego itself has to disintegrate. And we have this attachment with that little voice in our head, right, saying this little voice in our head is us, not the actual more, without being too woo-woo, the more spiritual, I like the being, the inner being, as Eckhart would refer to it, or the Tao, or whatever, the Logos, whatever it is you want to call it. But there's a real attachment to this ego that we have, and we've never been shown how to get rid of it. I mean, you see the coolest people in life. Well, for me anyway, I look at the coolest people ever are the ones without ego, who are totally humble and are just authentically them. And the most broken, the most damaged, and the guys who have the most issues are the ones with massive amounts of ego. I used to be an absolute fuckwit, and I can still be a massive fuckwit now too. Like, it still comes up. I'm far from perfect. But I remember that back then, the times where I was the biggest prick, where I was most stubborn, where I was most arrogant, where I was most ego-driven, self-centered, was also the time where I was the most broken. And it was this interesting thing, is that when I started meditating more, when I started doing more breath work, and I've become more of a hippie, right? And I went through this sort of transformation. Some people call it a rebirth. I wouldn't call it that, but this change and this developing from a child into an adult. A child is the development of ego. You're born as a baby, you develop your ego, which is a key point of growing up. And then as an adult, you have to shed that ego to fully develop, right? And for me, I found that once the ego started becoming much less prominent in my life, it still exists, definitely, but much less prominent, things got easier. But I went about it probably the totally wrong way, because it took me a very, very long time. So how would you guide somebody? How do you guide guys to help become more humble and to soften the sound of that ego so that they can just be the most awesome, authentic selves?
Yeah. It's awesome, bro. Like, it's a fun journey, bro. Like, I'm stoked you've enjoyed it. It's not always the nicest to be in it at the time, but you're like, shit. You sometimes come out the other side.
Bipolar was fun. It was pretty fun on the highs, but the lows weren't terribly good.
Oh man, and we've all got summits. Like, the greatest thing I love about the crew, like you, the crew at JCF, and how you focus on people's summits. Because again, summit creates tension, and then you've got clay to build a life out of. And what I really focus on with people, we're very orientated focus, goal focused, in terms of, like, take me, for example, when I was younger, the Lamborghini. And until I've achieved the Lamborghini, I'm not really worth anything. So there's always this massive gap between, like, here's the goal, here's where I am. And even if I've made it to here, I'm like, you're still a piece of shit, mate. You're nowhere close, because I'm always measuring this. I'm always measuring the gap. And so what I just started to change with people, how do we kind of objectify how you're being? So I use archetypes especially for men. Like, the king is such a incredible archetype for us men, because when we always talk to people about Lord of the Rings, and like they see the king who's under the spell, and the people are freaking dying, they're fighting, there's no food growing, relationships and everything. The castle is just falling to pieces. And then he pulls the spell out of this. I think Gandalf pulls the magician pulls the spell off this king, and he suddenly embodies what it is to be a true king. And to be a true king, everything flourishes. Relationships flourish, families flourish, communities flourish.
So what do you mean when you're talking about archetypes?
So archetypes gives us, like, a structure to base ourselves on who we are being. So when I ask somebody, okay, let's say you want to be a leader, and I ask them, okay, what are all the things a leader is being in their life, and where are they too much and where are they too little?
So like the ideal identity of a particular character.
Yeah, because we can fully, people call it the ego death, but if you don't have an ego, how do you say I love you? Where's the I if there's no ego? So
ego is Latin for I.
Yeah. So it's such an important aspect of it, but we've got to learn to love the aspects of that ego, the dark sides of it, the narcissist, the things that hates seeing other people succeed. And you've got to learn to embrace those and bring them in. I always call it, bring it into your heart space. It's like I always do that kind of work to see something in my mind's eye. I'm a very visual person. I need to see those aspects coming in and being welcomed. So they're all equal in my life.
Why do you welcome them as opposed to shut them out?
I always use the child analogy, bro. Like, let's say, you got that golden gap again and you're kicking yourself on the ground because you haven't hit your KPIs and things like that. And so you take that shit home with you and ruin a few other things. If you did the same and you watched a kid like riding his bike down the road, like your kid riding a bike down the road, falls over, scuffs his knee, do you walk over and just start kicking that kid while he's down?
Not unless you're a dick.
Exactly. You would never do that. You would never walk over and start kicking that kid while he's on the ground.
Depends how many times he woke you up the night before. Yeah.
This could be the case. Maybe you just walk the other direction and just kind of let it bleed for a little bit. But it's this age-old story. And then I asked the other question. I'm like, okay, then if you look after him, at what age is it a good idea to stop a kid from learning to walk? Like at what age? And you'd be a terrible human if you ever stopped a kid from trying to learn to walk. That you just wouldn't do that. So how come we can see that outside of ourselves, and then inside of ourselves when we screw up, when a piece of ourselves lashes out in a way that we would not normally act, we then beat ourselves up. We just, and man, beat ourselves up. The cocaine, the 10 grand in a weekend, they're like, literally, you can imagine yourself as a meat sack on the ground and you're just laying into that guy. And it's not until that you can love those aspects of yourself and actually pull them in and become a whole person that you can then go, okay, cool. Like, how was I being this week? Like, let's forget the normal goals. If I look back on the week, how was I being? Was I being supportive because I want to be this king or this leader? Okay, cool. Was I being curious? Oh, 1 to 10, was I? No, probably a 2. What could I do better in order to be more curious? What could I do better to be more supportive? How can I embody that more? And then you bring everything that's, in the back of the subconscious to your forefront, and you're like, man, I could have been more supportive if I had done this. Okay, can I schedule that? Can I create a KPI on that? Probably. I can make it really clear in order what I need to do, and I can put that in my calendar.
So instead of being obsessed with being perfect and saying, I've done everything right, we turn back into the student. Yeah. And we begin to learn more, learn relentlessly. Which ironically is what I think it's master and guru both mean, is that they're someone who studies continually, right?
Master and guru.
Something along those lines. Yeah. I think it was master or guru. I can't remember which one, but it's one of the two, right? It's the same sort of sentiment, is that when you truly master something and you truly nail something, it means that you're truly a student of it.
And yeah, it makes perfect sense. And then,
right.
Yeah, like I've always understood, again, I want to have this, this, and this, and this. And then how many people finish a day and like with a tick box, and the day only feels good as how many things they ticked off their list. Like this is I don't want to sound sexist by any means, but I watch like incredible mums and everything that in my world, and it's like they got that list, bro. Like it's like, how was your day? It was a good day. I got a lot done. I'm like, cool. Okay, if we flip it and go, okay, let's not worry about the haves. Like I've got to have this house, I've got to have that, whatever it is. Let's worry about the do's and the B's, and let's start at B. So let's start with being something that we want to be, because then you're going to be happy with that. And then what is that person who's being, as I said, with the king, what does he do? What are some of the things he do? And then you can have that tick box, and we can still get that little dopamine hit, because we love addicted to that dopamine. Love it.
Dopamine's good. So is cocaine, funnily enough.
Funnily enough, eh?
not that I'm allowed to say that publicly.
Well, yeah, sure it has its ups and downs.
Yeah, more downs than ups, but yeah.
So it's like, sweet. So you create, we train ourselves like kids or train ourselves like dogs, and you use those little things. You got your B's, you got your do's, and the haves take care of itself. Piece of piss. You don't need to worry about the haves anymore. Just focus on the B's and the do's. Haves take care of everything else.
Dude, this has been a really cool chat.
Yeah, right.
Thanks for coming on, man.
I appreciate it, mate. Appreciate it.
Really, really fucking cool. So really to wrap it up and to finish on something like actionable, like really, really super actionable. We're all in our own way. We all want to embark on our hero's journey. We're all chasing fulfillment, whether it's through being fucking loaded, whether it's through banging a heap of chicks, whether it's through having some form of whatever we view as success. How do you suggest that we can all start on our own hero's journey to get to what we really want? What are the first things that we should do if we wanted to embark on that journey?
Start with who do you really want to be? Start with that, because the challenges that happen on the way for when you're on your hero's journey are intense. And if you don't have a guide, you don't have a mentor, and you don't have that understanding of who you want to be, you'll just fall off. I mean, we call it the compass. You got to have your values. You got to have who you're going to be on this journey, because otherwise the wagon wheels will always just peel off and you'll forget why you were doing something. So when it comes to moving forwards, pick first who do you want to be, and then start working on, okay, what do I want to achieve for this greatness that I have in me? What are the things that I'd love to achieve? And there's the audacious goal, there's the massive goal. The hero's journey never finishes. You're in the conscious world, you go into the unconscious world, you meet your mentor. Gandalf was the wizard. You go through, you have the death where you've got to sacrifice the old you most of the time. You got to go, shit, I got to make some big life choices here. Am I going to stay in this relationship? Am I going to keep my CEO job? What am I called to? And then you come out the other side with these brand new gifts and knowledge, and you've got to go, holy shit, it's one of the hardest parts. Everybody thinks the death is the hardest part, but bringing that knowledge, that new you, into the conscious world, the world that you existed in before, that shit's scary. And if you haven't got someone holding your hand, you get lost. Look at the idea of the hippie world. You get lost over there, or the other world where you never come back. And they're like, what happened to James? Jesus, he just disappeared off the face of the earth. But you, of all people, have an amazing mentors in your life to come back. But it's pick who you want to be, and then use that, embody that to go on and start listening to okay, what are the things that I want to achieve in my life?
Let's get something filmed up, dude. Let's do it this week, and we'll put it with this podcast so the guys can learn more, if they want, more about the hero's journey and almost a step-by-step to begin that path on becoming who you actually want to be and living a really totally fulfilled life. Let's do it.
Yeah, sounds good, bro. Sounds awesome.
Fuck yeah. Done deal, man. Thanks for coming on, bro. It was awesome.
Welcome, man. Love it. Absolutely love having a chat with you, bro.
Hell yeah. We'll do it again soon.
Sweet, brother. We'll catch you later.
Thanks,
Cheers,
brother.
Mate.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you got something out of it and you want to learn more, click the link below or type in High Performance Conversations with James Cant, and you'll be able to check out all the podcasts that we've done. We cover a stack of different topics, everything from getting your mojo back, overcoming anxiety, self-doubt, self-esteem, and learning from some of the industries and some of the world's top performers in both business and in health. Look forward to having you on there.